All right. Great. Well, thank you first of all for making, in a very organized and on-timely session. I think rarely do I see sessions running on time in such large conferences where there are like thousands of people on every floor. Yeah, and of course, happy to see a lot of familiar faces, that I've interacted with over a few years here as well on the panel. So before we get started, obviously, we'd start with introductions so that all have some context on who is speaking and what do they do. So I think very quickly, 2 minutes on what your role is and what your organization does. Yeah.
I'm Satyam, running LoanTap for last 8 years now. We have been essentially more a horizontal player. So we have been on our consumer loans. We are in supply chain financing. And specifically, we love EV space. So we do a lot of electric two-wheeler financing besides tech itself. Thank you.
I'm Anil. I'm founder of Vivifi India. We are mainly a consumer lender, but of late we have diversified into MSME lending. Because we have a large self-employed portfolio and there is a large unmet need within the MSME space when you look at the micro and the non-entrepreneurs, when the loan ticket sizes go below 5 lakhs, that space is relatively untapped, both for the secured and the unsecured side, and that's what we are trying to solve. Still building on the foundation we built on the consumer side.
I'm Vineet. I run a company called Vivriti. We manage assets of micro, small, and medium, all the 3 categories. Medium directly, small by way of supply chain partnerships for the medium-sized companies, and micro through partnerships with smaller NBFCs.
Hi, I'm Gurjodhpal. I run Tide platform in India. Tide is a financial platform for micro and small businesses. We help them do their financials and admin and help them save time and money. We started out in the UK and are market leaders in UK in this space with close to 10% market share. And India is our second market. We have around 350K members on the platform, and we are seeing a good growth in India market. Credit is one of the things, credit intermediation that we do for micro and small businesses. And look forward to the discussion, Rohit.
Thanks everyone. Great, so I think we'll dive deep into it. The first one that I really want to understand is how digital are we really, right? Because the topic here is more around SME risk underwriting, right? Understanding SMEs, right? Much better from a risk perspective. And of course, SMEs tend to be a very hard segment simply because a lot of the data has not yet been digitized, right? At least that's what the market says, right? But we have, a lot of key lenders here who are already handling SMEs, proprietors, right? MSMEs, right? The smaller verticals as well of that. So yeah, I would love to know your perspective, specifically in your organization. How digital has it already become when it comes to data collection and the onboarding process, right? Are we fully digital yet? Is there something that holds you back, right? But yeah, just a quick comment on that from your specific organizations. Yes, any one of you.
So I think the proof is of pudding in having it. So you look at all the NBFCs on a classic or a traditional ways, you will see a revenue lines which will be dominated by interest income. And if you start seeing that a fintech or a lendtech has a revenue which is dominated by a fee income, that essentially should say that it's a digital business. So the digital is essentially a journey, and segment-wise segment, it's getting fully digitized. Consumer lending almost, I think, for everyone is fully digitized now. And MSMEs on a micro side also is fully digitized for most of the institutions. There are some legs, like if you do an electric two-wheeler financing, the RTO registration, whether you want to call it a digital, phygital, whatever, there is a physical document which has to go to an RTO office. Okay. But that's the journey. As things move, so I think the government institution has been more than active in embracing the technology. So we saw RBI launching a complete stack day for yesterday. We could not believe that now you can, you can get a dairy data and all through an API. A lot of land records has gone there digitally. So my sense is that even micro lab and housing loan and all, you will see a lot of digital play, which is the last bastion, because other than these 2 places, most of the other places, it's a complete digital journey for most of the institutions, other than some fraud checks here and there.
I'll echo what a lot of Satyam said. obviously on the consumer side, I think everybody has a full digital journey, I mean, soup to nuts kind of a thing. On the MSME side, as I said, especially on the unsecured, smaller micro points, you have to do the CPV kind of a thing. So that kind of breaks the chain. But the bigger opportunity or the diversification everyone is trying to go through is more on the secured side. And that's where the unified lending interface can provide a great opportunity to digitize and smoothen that entire process a lot more with the digitization of land records as the dairy records. There are specific use cases respect to agri and others, which are all picking up. And that's the space which is right now not primarily a digital journey. It has a lot of offline pieces. Similarly with Vahan or some other portals, some of that data is being brought into the ULI platform. So all of these give opportunities to kind of digitize a journey or that has not been digitized yet. And that's one of the things this week has been all about ULI and what our governor calls the new trinity of JAM, UPI, ULIs, which should be the next wave of fintech revolution we see in India.
So I'll break this down into 4 parts. I think there is acquisition, underwriting, execution, and monitoring. Right now, part of the answer to what you're asking is, do we have the infrastructure? Answer is yes. So today, whether Vivriti looks at a micro, a small, or a medium, there is enough data in the public domain to actually form a partial view, which is the underwriting part, right? Then it really kind of breaks down to whether my credit policy allows me to lend with a partial view, or do we want to see the guy, right? And I guess that becomes a function of ticket size. The larger the ticket size, the more you want to see the guy, right? Which can always be an offline journey. Acquisition is the toughest. I think the only way to acquire digitally for a business is either they are on a payment platform, or they are purchasing digitally and you're financing that piece. Any other transaction, it's impossible to acquire digitally. That's a bit of a mixed one. Execution is the lowest hanging fruit. Everybody here is executing digitally. That's the lowest hanging fruit. Monitoring on payments is digital. Monitoring on digital data using bureaus and other sources of data is digital. Is that enough or not depends on ticket size. So I guess the answer is that, can we do it? Yes, we can. Will we do it is more policy driven.
Yeah, just adding the flavor from the segment that we work on, the micro part of MSME. So broadly, KYC or onboarding is mostly solved for. But a major challenge in the micro segment is the digital footprint available. So a large part of ecosystem that we work with is the new to business or new to digitized micro entrepreneurs who have been somehow out of the system. And I think this is the first part to bring them into any sort of credit journey. Very large percentage of them are new to credit, and we essentially do intermediation, but there the value that we've been trying to bring is that, for these new to credit or, generally in the SME space, the challenge which the lenders face as well as the business faces is that the rejection rates of applications are pretty high. And the core reason to that is the appetite of the lender and what the business is into. That matching is not good. So that's the kind of value that we try to bring, where you route the right set of business to the right set of lender with the right set of appetite, and that brings that rejection rate to a lower lower number, which essentially helps the business have the money when they want it, and hence come out of this entire informal money lender kind of a system. I think that's the kind of segment that we work with and we try to enable.
Great. No, I think thanks for touching on specifically the micro segment, right? I think Vineet and Gurjodh. Specifically, micro is, you're right, micro is probably one of the hardest ones, right? They're new to business, a lot of the records are not available, not digital yet. So a lot of times it's like you're actually framing a policy for a segment that has never borrowed, right, before. right? So you have to evolve your own policy and at the same time consider what the market is saying and the regulator is saying, right? So I remember when CKYC and CERSAI came in, of course, all of us would be familiar with that, but I'm very curious, how many in the audience know about CKYC or CERSAI? Great, almost like 15, 20%, nice, good. So this was like a unified repository, right? And obviously, still there are a lot of questions around the data quality of that, CKYC, and the government is trying, lenders are trying as well, right, to improve that over time. In parallel, we see this similar wave on the MSME and the SME side of unified repositories coming in, right? The first one, obviously, which has got a lot of eye and a lot of demand in the market, and we know that because we sell a lot of it, is Udyam or Udyog Aadhaar access, right? Do you see that as a trend in your specific, customer base? If yes, would love to know some flavor from that. If not, are there some data quality issues there as well? Yeah, love to hear from you specifically, yeah, with your businesses.
So I think there are some private network for the data and there's some public network for the data. Data quality, when it comes, then in a public network, it had remained patchy for a long time. We hope that over a period of time, it will require less BREs to be run from our side. It will come more and more clean and more and more consumable format. When it comes to a private data network, the private data network has always been more organized and more a lot of recency is there as against a public data infrastructure. So the public data that we consume could be as basic as electricity bill, which is now you have a different supply undertakings and all, which will have its own formats, its own complications and all. Or it could be as common as a GST framework or an account aggregator framework for a bank statement. So depending upon there's a lot of variation in the data quality. And that's where a lot of time today goes as far as individual fintechs are concerned in making it consumable from their point of view or making it consumable from a lending point of view. And that's the whole stuff which is being solved between core banking systems and the new age fintechs or modular structures that has been built in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's an issue, but in a developing phase. So let's see.
Thanks, sir.
I think Udyam or the Udyog Aadhaar, whatever it is called, it has both names, is a very important of our journey. Mainly because we see it as a way to figure out who is already digitally present. There is a way to validate it. That simplifies the journey. It simplifies mainly because one of the more important aspects of our journey is the account aggregator framework, where we are not only obtaining the bank statement data, which obviously is the most prevalent use case, but we are also trying to obtain the GST data, which helps us in underwriting a customer quickly, right? So if you look at the Udyam data, about 2.8 crores are through the regular Udyam, and about 2.5 or so crores of the registrations are through the assist kind of a model. And it almost is important if you are trying to be in the micro space of the MSME lending, that you almost encourage the potential borrowers to go through that journey. Because if you look at the registrations out of the nearly 5 crore odd registrations, almost 85-90% of them are micro, tagged micro. And it is the awareness, because what it mainly does, it opens up the PSL tag as a borrower, as a lender for us. But for the borrower, it has several innate benefits like CGT, MSME, which all open up. So that initiative, especially in the last 2 years, has really driven, digital adoption, and is a very key component. And one of the things that has simplified us to clearly identify what is an MSME and what is not. When you look at the broader spectrum, almost 80 to 90% of our enterprises are informal micro enterprises, right? Like they're not even formal. So how do you formalize them? Give them a very simple form, which are always our forward-looking regulators and the governments have done with our DPI. And I see this as a very great, it's almost as important as Aadhaar on the consumer side that the Udyam or the Udyog Aadhaar is playing. So it's a very important part in my mind.
I think the Udyam has a very good future ahead, because the applications of, as you've seen, applications of Aadhaar, which is an individual identity, has rapidly built over time. And I think there is a lot that can happen with Udyam as well. We've had a bit of a mixed experience. It's a bit funny. When we deal with the micro segment, then there is a lot of incentive to get the MSME registered. Even if they are not, then you go ahead and get it done for them in some fashion. That journey is not necessarily fully seamless. Some of it happens as a post-lending rather than pre-lending, just to ease the journey, but that's more details. On the small and medium, it's funny because there is also a law that says that, if your supplier is an MSME, then you better pay them on time, right? And there is an incentive, therefore, tell the guy, don't get registered. I'll still pay you on time, right? So but all in all, jokes apart, I think it's outstanding that we have this in place, and I think the implications of this will only get clearer and clearer over time.
Yeah, no, can't agree more. I think this has huge potential, but for it to deliver on its potential, it has to be at the same level as Aadhaar is for consumers. And I believe we are at a point where even the fintech ecosystem can play a big enabler role. But for that, we need these seamless APIs, etc., where we could, anybody, any SME coming to use any service, we could help them digitally to just go through the journey and enrich the data. I'll give you an example of our business in UK, right? We are the biggest contributors to Company House. So, everybody has to go to Company House to register. But typically when somebody is starting a new business, they think about getting an account first, then, registering, or think about it at the same time. So, we've just brought both these journeys together on our platform, and we, over years, we have become the biggest contributor of Company House registrations. And similar trend we could have in our market as well, because a lot of this informal sector, right, the data which we read is that there are 65 million, SMEs. But if you look at any market, the percentage of small businesses to population is somewhere between 8 to 10%. And with that, there are these, there should be around 135 to 140 million SMEs. And, this entire missing part of economy, it has huge potential, and they can thrive a lot more as they come to formal credit, etc., and get out of this inefficient chain of money lending, etc. So I think huge potential and way to go. But it's been a good journey over last, I think, few years. We've made good progress, but we should see an inflection point here.
Great. No, I think speaking of inflection points, right, this is the next problem statement is something which I personally think about a lot, or we at Decentro think about a lot, is like really quantifying and validating somebody's address, right? So, and I'm sure, from an MSME perspective, that's a very important aspect, right? That is the shop really where it is, right? Or is the proprietor really where he says he is, right? So how do you make sure and validate with all the potential authenticity that, of course, is certified by your compliance in line with regulations, that, okay, now we have verified this guy's address, right? Is there something innovative that the industry can do, or you are exploring as a pilot, right? Which you feel can make it digital, like the entire address verification? Or do you think CPV is the only way that has, survived the test of time? Yeah, would love to hear on that.
So we have tried from time to time, and you think, at least not only in urban center, now even a rural center, if we are able to meet at a common ground, then the entire, the e-com business could be a great enabler. We have tried to take away the CPV piece by getting a banana delivered from a platform, or getting a coffee delivered from a platform as more like a welcome to the customer, at the same time also validating whether the address holds or not. And that address also has a lot of repeat value. So it's not a temporary address. The permanence and recency, both of the addresses is very much validated, and I think people like an organization like yours can do it at a big scale by merging these two ecosystems, because e-com needs lending as much as we need them to help us with preventing fraud. I mean, address, you have an address, but the whole task is preventing fraud. So I think e-com needs it as much as we need it, and that's the lowest cost, always available kind of a data. And again, big billion day is coming, so you know what is going to happen. So the data is available, and it's available in a digital form. We have to just try and figure out how we can merge it.
I'll just answer it from a different perspective, where you have to marry the ease of customer journey with the regulatory expectation, and we need to make sure that whatever we are doing is under the regulatory ambit. Having said that, I will definitely copy whatever Satyam just said, and try to make it a part of our journey to see if there is some way we can do it. And that's I mean, see, the market is so large that we are all always not just competing but collaborating as well, and that's how we unlock the real potential of India and be the Viksit Bharat that we all keep talking about by 2047. So as I said, like, it's a question of balancing, and we'll keep looking for providers like you to also come up with solutions.
I think the only thing we can do beyond what Satyam is saying is to send drones. But possibly, I think there is...
This one I'm not going to copy yet.
But possibly the only thing that I can add to what my fellow panelists are saying is, can the ULI have lenders report back to ULI? So are there lender verified addresses which are coming back, just like CKYC, right? Which then starts building a much deeper repository, which is now, as Anil said, building an ecosystem rather than all of us doing this individually. So if you really have to cut costs, I think we will actually be giving back to the ULI.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, of course, ULI and then players like yourselves, there's a lot of scope of collaboration. So, for example, somebody like us, we lend only when we have anchor relationship, which is an account for which we have already delivered a card, which has been received, which is active, etc. Right? Along with that, we could go across sectors as well. E-commerce is a great example. Another very data-rich sector is telecom, right? So we as an ecosystem, we need to bring all these together, and these can be very rich. And maybe I think ULI is a brilliant opportunity to do that. Yeah.
No, I think, and carrying on, from that ULI point itself, right, which also goes back to what Anil was mentioning around secured lending, right? So a lot of people looking at asset-specific records, right? The asset location, the asset value, right? The asset condition and all of that. ULI obviously is a very ambitious project. It's very early, very infancy days right now. Just like UPI, it will take a while before it matures, right? But from a secured lending perspective, and of course, specifically if you are doing that, what is the biggest problem you foresee which has still not yet been solved? It may be, solved by ULI, that is one for sure. But is there something which keeps you up at night from a secure lending perspective that, okay, this is the problem that nobody in the industry has solved yet? And it's a very hard problem as well to solve. Yeah, would love to hear from you on that.
So in secure lending, one of the things which keeps lenders awake is multiple funding on the same property. That's the biggest fraud, and that's a sizable fraud, because the intent is very clear, and that those frauds, even a smallest transaction will be 25 lakh or 1 crore. So this is something which people have been trying to visualize on the data sets and all. And please understand, property. Just to give you an example, the property that you are registering, the registration office is only registering it. It's not verifying that you are the owner. The seller is the owner. That's the job is not of the registration. So the title search, which we call in India, the title search, we do not have a formal title search. It's an opinion. It's not a title certificate, which the lawyer produces left, right, and center. So that has been one of the biggest stuff which has been doing. The second thing is that other than the recent collateral which has got created in the cities in terms of apartment and all the moment you start going on a micro lending, all the collaterals are in a family tree. Either it's a mother side of the family tree or a father side of the family tree and all. And for any size of loan, not everyone will come as a co-applicant or a lender or a borrower and all. Okay. So how do we solve these pieces for it to really broad base? not yet been able to visualize, but yeah, these are the stuff which is there to be addressed.
See, the way to solve what Satyam has mentioned is tokenization of assets. And that's what we as a country need. Yeah. So that once you tokenize, then you can securitize and collateralize. And that's an initiative that is, a huge initiative. And it can start with land as an asset, which is probably the lowest common denominator and the easiest one to tackle. Not the easiest one to tackle. I would say there is a potential to tackle it because there is some registration data available. But the more important thing will be, see, every household, every business has so many assets which are not unlockable from a lending standpoint. And tokenization will give that ability for us to assess the net worth which is hidden in any business. So it could be machinery, it could be, you're not talking about intangible assets, I'm talking about tangible assets, which once tokenized, give you a view into that true value within the business and that you can lend against, and then you collateralize so that if it's on a public blockchain kind of a platform, which maybe the ULI can be one more element of ULI, then there is no cross-collateralization, there is no cross-lending that happens. So I think as a ecosystem, it is important for us to start thinking forward because we all want to unlock the inherent value that lending to the micro and nano enterprises in our country can put us on a growth path. So that's what will be something that we can try to solve.
So I think 10 years back, I actually believed that we would actually see gold loans and two-wheeler loans delivered as BNPL type facilities on an e-commerce platform. Sadly, not yet happened. I think when you look at assets, there are 4 activities you carry out. There is authentication, which is to say that this asset exists and belongs to the person who says it is. There is valuation, which is assigning a value. Then there's actually creating the pledge, mortgage, security, hypothecation, whatever term you call it. Then there's enforcement, right? And on the asset side, you may have gold, you can have securities, you can have land, and you can have movable assets like vehicles. So if you look at it in this fashion, for some, for example, the journey is solved. If you are holding a security, you have a repository, you have a DMAT, you have identification, you have valuation, you can create a pledge, you can enforce, it's all done. But the moment you go to land, which is the other extreme, it's a complete mess. And okay, today we have prop tech companies trying to make sense of it. Some of them are today integrated with ULI as well. So there is an attempt to smoothen the journey, but it's a complete mess. It becomes even worse when the so-called identity or evidence of security creation is actually completely regional, right? So two-wheelers, for example. Okay, there is one Vahan, which is all India minus 2 states. But on mortgage, what do we have? It's completely regional, right? We can actually register the same mortgage in 3 different states and nobody will be the wiser, right? So I think a long way to go for secured lending. Some parts of it is possible. So a household's balance sheet or a business's balance sheet in cash, gold, securities, possible. The moment you go beyond that, it gets progressively difficult.
Yeah, but I think we've covered a lot of it, but specifically, I think there is also a lot of room in things which can today work digitally. So, for example, securities, right? Mutual funds, SIPs. So gold has seen a lot of traction, right? We've seen good amounts there. But I think on securities we have a lot of room, of course, on property assets. I think a lot of us are looking at ULI, etc. Let's see how much it solves. But whatever has been solved, I think there's a lot of room. Consolidation is I believe important, and then it also helps in breaking this. Making it more efficient, I think, for everyone, and hence the cost goes down, etc. And it's more straightforward. And I think those efforts we need to be making. Yeah.
Do we have time for one question? Q&A? Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
If you have a question, please put your hand up.
Yeah,
We'll
I
pass
think
on the mic.
we'll open up to PhDs. Yes.
Thank you. Great insight by the panel. When we look at the current state where we are and how over the past few years, post-COVID especially, we have grown, right? And the way we are now positioning like China +1 position for the India, I see there would be also a next level where, the MSME will get into the next leg of their development journey, where they will start exports, right? And then you will have more complexities, you will have trade finance, supply, all of this coming into. So how do you also enable credit enablement and one language, right? Specifically one language, like Sir said, he has, solution working in UK, right? We are developing it in the India, right? How can we create one unified language, one global ecosystem where all MSME across the different country can come and thrive? We create a single unified kind of maybe we can call it a DLT, distributed ledger, where we record all of the assets, all of these artifacts, and enable actual development for MSME. Because today what is happening, the big organizations are getting bigger and bigger, and small people are really thriving, trying to thrive, but they're not getting the enough support. So I see there is actually a gap persist. As we are now developing as an India, we need to have those consideration as well. Like at the bottom of a pyramid, what we are talking about, verifying the address, all of that is definitely need to happen. But when we are journeying, next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, there will be a set of MSME, who will be thriving to do export. How do we enable them a great business environment to grow?
I think the short answer to what you're asking is ULI. But because I think you're right, there are many disparate databases. For example, there is a centralized KYC database. There is a centralized asset quality database, which is a bureau. There might tomorrow be databases where, as we were discussing, addresses can be fed back so that verified addresses can be used by any lender, right? So today there actually exist such ecosystems, through which each lender can build their own journey. So I think the future is less gloomy as our MSMEs seek to scale. I think, and I think the moment our journeys can also embrace more secured lending, we will actually see a far, far higher scalability of the lending ecosystem towards MSMEs, because even today the vast majority of what's happening is unsecured, which is a bit scary and can go through very significant cycles.
I think your question is more related to the global environment. Like you're talking about MSME interaction across global.
Yeah, across global and creating a centralized repository. And to your point, right? Secure lending is definitely a great way for the credit companies, but at the same time, unsecured lending is not going up because most of the business will look for the working capitals. That's their blood, and not always they will have option to mortgage something. But how do we try to create a situation or kind of understand that even though we are lending unsecurely, is it a good credit? And that will give us a trust, like, when somebody's raising an invoice abroad or, they are getting some trade later, right? How do we verify that? That all has to happen, right? And I believe, what I have seen in the last 15, 20 years, unsecured lending from the MSME is not going here, truly speaking.
No, you're right. It's not going anywhere. And the idea of bringing in secured lending is more to kind of bring in a market gap. But I'll give an example to you. Today, for example, when we fund an MSME, we're not a bank, right? So we don't have the benefit of having a bank account. Opening an escrow account takes us 14 days, right? Now, what if 14 days were 14 seconds? Life would change dramatically, because the moment we're able to capture cash flows, right, or have visibility of cash flows, our comfort would skyrocket. But that's not true at all today, right? Because neither does the bank open up their architecture for a non-bank lender or an alternate lender, right? Nor is there interoperability of these systems so that we can actually do it one shot, irrespective of whether the account is ICICI, IDFC, SBI, but we have a single way, a single agreement, a single structure to make it happen digitally, right? So I think today, why I'm saying this is because in the large SME ecosystem, banks have solved it by capturing flows in the account. So the bank ensures that the export receivable comes into their account. The currency conversion happens by them. And that's how they get comfortable in providing that 90-day export facility, right? But for an alternate lender to do that in a riskier ecosystem with a smaller SME, right? We'll have to jump through 25 hoops to make it happen. So I guess that bridge is probably going to be the single biggest revolution if it happens.
I think I do realize that we have far more questions coming in from the audience, but we'll have to draw the line here. If you have more questions, please take it up while we network. Right now, I would want all of you all to please give a huge round of applause to all of our panelists. This was the last session for this pavilion. Thank you so much.